Good evening to everyone. Thank you for coming here today. I'm Arnau Gifreu. I'm the Interactive and Transmedia Coordinator of DocsBarcelona. In every festival, we have 3 festivals, one in Barcelona, one in Chile, in Valparaíso, and the other one in Medellin, in Colombia, and a network of 90 exhibition theaters around Latin America. So we are very happy to introduce today our first speaker. So basically in interDocs, which is the interactive and transmedia section of DocsBarcelona Valparaíso, we have 4 sections this year, 4 proposals for you. The first one is conferences, so we have invited people from Tribeca Film Institute and Film Festival from New York, Mediamorphosis from Argentina, National Film Board of Canada, Building the Koning Academy from the Netherlands, for example, from Galicia, from Spain as well, some coders. So we have an amazing roster of people that will share and will enlighten us these days with their amazing knowledge. And basically, tomorrow we will have 2 conferences. The first one will be taught by Zeyna Assi, and the second one from Damian Kirchner from Argentina, just after the conference with Zeyna. And basically the other parts that we have is an interactive pitch. Next Wednesday you can come if you want to attend the interactive pitch, the first interactive pitch in Valparaíso. We have as well, we celebrate the Hackadoc, which is a WebDocs prototyping workshop with amazing results that we celebrate this weekend here in Dinamarca 399, an amazing place with an amazing landscape. And the 4th part is the development workshop given by Joan González, director of DocsBarcelona, and we have an extension of 1 day, extra day, which was today, about interactive and transmedia development of 3 projects. So all of this is what is proposed by this festival for you. And today, basically, we have this conference given by Zeyna Assi. She is director of the interactive area from Tribeca Film Institute, New York. She's writer and artist from Lebanon. And basically, she told me that this is all that you have to say about me. So the rest, she will talk in the next minutes with a conference which is called basically New Media, Past, Present and Future. It's for us a pleasure to have basically Tribeca here for us, and Tribeca it's like a referent for us. You have a very good experience on interactive and new media, so basically we are waiting for your report. Let's give an applause to Zeyna, and the stage is yours.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Is this good? Yeah. Hi everyone. Thank you for having me. Thanks for DocsBarcelona, and thank you for the beautiful city of Valparaíso. I would love to give my talk in Spanish, but I can basically only count to 5, so we won't get anywhere if I do that. So we're going to stick to English, and we have the lovely translators who will just transform what I'm saying to your beautiful language. So as Arnaud already said, I'm the manager of interactive department at Tribeca Film Institute. Tribeca Film Institute is an organization that focuses on underrepresented voices in the media industry. We work with and support and fund filmmakers and media artists who are working at the intersection of story, community in order to create impact in the world. We have 3 different departments. The oldest is the artist programs, and artist programs funds and supports linear filmmakers or traditional film, scripted and documentary. The education department, which works in high schools and prisons to enable these communities to tell their own stories. And finally, the interactive department. The department was born in 2011 as a response to the shifting media landscape. We wanted to bring people together to explore storytelling in the digital age. And that meant people who are working in film, in technology, in social justice, journalism, gaming, you name it. Really, there was no limit to who can enter the space and who can work together to create impactful projects with technology and storytelling. So when we first created the department, we wanted to create a 360-degree journey for a project, which means support from the inception all the way to showcasing and exhibiting. And in that sense, we broke down our programs into four main elements: support, incubation, resources, and finally the stage, which is showcasing a Tribeca Film Festival. Our funds are made up of really two focuses. The New Media Fund, which is, I think, what the department was really known for across the years because it was an international fund. It was really important for us to maintain a global view on social issues and media. And so our fund focused on projects that are in production, meaning you've already been working on this project, you likely have a prototype, and you really want to take this project to the next level and finalize it. They were projects that are nonfiction. We say nonfiction. Oftentimes the projects are simply rooted in documentary, but they are cross-genre. We have funded fiction projects, as long as the projects address a social issue and were focused on social impact and social justice. The funds range from $50,000 to $100,000, and they're really meant to either drive the project home to the final stage, or to really give you a big leap in your production journey. Sometimes it really closed the deal and helped the project really finish with a bang, and oftentimes projects needed more support, and so our fund sort of enabled them to go out and get more money. The other fund, which was created a little bit after the New Media Fund, was the Prototype Fund. We thought it was important that we created a space for new talent who are simply exploring ideas to have some kind of money to prototype, ideate, iterate on technology and storytelling, and from there have a sort of working blueprint of a project that they can later take and get more funding with. These projects we were a little bit loose with our criteria, so it was nonfiction and fiction, always focused on social justice, and they were between $10,000 and $20,000. And it ranged based on what we thought the project needed, or sort of the technology that they were going to work with. The second program, which we just had a hackadoc here a few days ago, and it's sort of with the similar spirit. We have hacks and labs. Tribeca Hacks was a space that we created to invite people from different industries to come together for 3 intensive days of working in order for different disciplines and different talents to learn from one another, to start to speak each other's languages. How can a designer and a filmmaker suddenly start to interact? They needed to understand, what the design process, the filmmaker needed to understand what a design process looks like, what a coding process looks like, and likewise, designer needed to understand the director's perspective or vision and the way they tell stories. And it was a great space for cross-disciplined artists and creators to come together and learn from one another and create. We conducted these hacks in over 16 cities all over the world. And we also did a few labs, which typically last a little bit longer. Hacks are usually 3 days, but the labs are a little bit longer, and they include more mentorship sessions and more sort of master classes on digital storytelling. And then we have the resource section, which is made up of 2 categories. I would speak about the sandbox, but I couldn't stress more how outdated this platform is currently, and we aim to really develop and revamp this platform in 2018. But when it was first created, it was meant to be a resource space for anyone who wanted to create new media projects. And at the time, that meant, people were really, it was just simply an emerging medium, and so people had a hard time accessing what does new media mean, how do we create projects, how do we budget for it, what's the production timeline. So the sandbox really was a place to discover already existing and successful projects, to participate, meaning a real in-depth introduction to our programs, and it was a great resource to learn how to build new media projects. And recently we started a platform called Immerse.news alongside MIT Doc Lab and the Fledgling Fund. And it's a space for emerging nonfiction storytelling practices to sort of have a conversation. You have experts and practitioners writing pieces about the landscape, about issues of ethics, about gender gap, you know, the VR platform, and other people just sort of responded to these pieces. And it's a great space to go and really familiarize yourself with the medium and what's happening and sort of what the discourse around it is. And finally, we have the showcase, the Tribeca Film Festival. We have a few different spaces where interactive projects really can exhibit and thrive. We have the main day for TFI is TFI Interactive Day, which is split into two pieces, the conference and the playground. The conference is really for practitioners and experts to discuss projects that they've developed, challenges that they experienced along the way, and ways to resolve them. Distribution channels and many other factors. The playground was an exhibition, or is in fact, an exhibition for new media projects that are not necessarily rooted in story. So they are projects that are exploring technology and art and sometimes story, but it's a space where we wanted to level the playing field. We exhibited students, thesis projects, really emerging talent alongside Google VR, directors and really experts in the field. And it was a space for people to enter and really be inspired. So if you have an idea, you can see a project and say, you know, maybe I can incorporate that in my story, or I can borrow that kind of technology to better tell my story. The other big exhibition that we had, which lasted a little bit longer than a day, was Storyscapes. And it's immersive story-led installations, large-scale installations, and they varied from wearable tech to video installations to virtual reality immersive experiences, and we've had a range of projects sort of enter that space. And then finally, 2 years ago, Tribeca Film Festival started the VRcade, which, as the name suggests, focuses on VR. And that's really largely because VR sort of became the hype, and the US is really pouring a lot of money into that medium. And so you often found the more developed projects were, because it was where the money was, were VR projects. And so we wanted to create a space where many of these explorations sort of came and existed in the same space and generated a conversation around the medium. How, you know, how necessary is it, and how empathetic is it, and how, you know, just a critical dialogue about the medium. So over the past 6 years, the department has conducted 24 hackathons in 16 cities internationally. We've given around $2 million to 31 projects, international projects, and we host almost 3,000 participants every year at the Tribeca Film Festival. From here, I want to sort of jump into some projects that we've worked with, that we funded, that we supported. And they were all rooted in documentary, but they take sort of different shapes and forms in order to tackle different social issues and to reach different audiences. The 5 following case studies are different in the technology that they use. And I just wanted to show sort of the spectrum of possibilities in terms of interactive or immersive documentary and the use of new technology to tell stories. The first project is one of the earlier projects we funded, and it's called Question Bridge. The team came to it when we supported the project in 2012, and it was led by Hank Willis-Thomas and Chris Johnson. they wanted to challenge the stereotypical view or ideas that America had about being a black male in the United States. They went around and they investigated the matter, and they researched and interviewed around 150 black males in the United States from different cities, sorry, not gender, they're all male, age, social and economical backgrounds, and they ask these people to either ask a question that they want to address other black males or answer to these questions. And they edited that into an installation of 5-screen installations, and it sort of became a thing where that community was indirectly having a conversation with one another and shaping the conversation about the identity of black males in the United States. It's from there they moved to thinking, you know, we went around and we have this archive of information, but they wanted to open it up to other people to contribute to the conversation. And so they, from there, developed a participatory website and app that you could, if you were a black male and wanted to engage in this conversation, upload either your own question or answer to the conversation. I'm just going to show you a brief video about this. I'm using VLC, right? Technical issue. Sorry, guys.
Black man.
Do you want to get out of the situation that you're in?
What is the reluctance for taking responsibility for improving our communities?
Are your children better or worse off as a result of your involvement?
Why wouldn't you be happy with your son being gay?
Why are you so violent?
Why do you have that take mentality?
Why are you afraid of being intelligent?
Why?
Why? Why?
Why? Why? Why? Why?
What I want to know is why.
I believe that we've incorporated a lot of things that are unhealthy to us.
We are supposed to be tough.
I can't let them see no type of sucker.
Along with various other stereotypes.
The level of mentorship in our community is not as strong as it possibly could be.
When I came up, crack was a quick way for a black man to make $1 million.
Sometimes I think because we think we're black, we're some other kind of human beings, but we're just like most other human beings.
Why didn't y'all leave us the blueprint?
We did leave you a blueprint.
We just didn't tell you where it was.
That's something that we dropped the ball on.
What do you fear?
That something will harm my children.
I fear success.
Am I the only one who has problem eating chicken, watermelon, and bananas in front of white people?
Hold on, bro. Y'all niggas crazy.
That word, we have to stop using it.
I think black people can say nigga anytime they want.
How dare you? What right do you have to use this word?
A lot of nigga questions for the rapper.
What is common to all of us that we can say makes us who we are?
This is the easiest question in the world to answer.
The thing that we have in common is that we are male and we are black.
So the question that said, why didn't you all leave us a blueprint? And that was a younger person asking sort of the older generation. And that really is the heart of this project. They wanted to provide a blueprint for this experience. And, you know, it came at a time when being black in America was a big there was a big question mark. There was a lot of misunderstanding around it. And this project really allowed for that same community to co-author their own story, to communicate what it meant for them to be black and male in America. The second project I want to talk about is probably something a lot of you already know, and it's called Do Not Track. And speaking of hacks, this was born as a hack idea, and they went on to develop it. They partnered with the NFP and many other organizations. They got the New Media Fund, and they went on to win a Peabody Award because of this project. And this is a web doc, as also participatory in some way. You know, the Snowden thing came out, and people were starting to think about, and we funded it in 2014, people were thinking about online tracking and online privacy, and it was still such a far-reaching idea. It was like overwhelming, you know, we were tracked online through using Facebook and Google, but we didn't quite know what that meant and how that affected our daily lives. And so this was the mission of Do Not Track. They wanted to really personalize the idea of tracking. And how they did that was they used the tricks of tracking in order to really emphasize the idea. So this is made of 7 episodes, conversations with experts and activists around social privacy, on internet privacy and tracking. And after every episode, you uploaded your information, and it showed you exactly how your information is being tracked and how that information is actually used to create your online profile. I will actually also show you a quick video of that. Sorry. Should I just use it? We're gonna wait until it verifies. All right. Okay, I'm just gonna try this.
Have you noticed the internet getting creepier? It used to feel like a fun, magical place, but these days, something feels off. It seems like a few companies are getting rich, and the rest of us get tracked. And the more things are targeted to us, the less equal we become. So a group of makers and public media folks got together to explore what is happening. From our mobile phones to social networks, from personalized advertising to big data. Every 2 weeks, we'll release a new personalized documentary with a different perspective. We want you to understand the value of your privacy, so we're going to ask you to let us track you. During each episode of Do Not Track, you'll be able to use your own data to understand how information about you is used by others. We'll give you more knowledge, so you'll have more power. Let's track the trackers together.
So this project really used the web in order to fight the web in an interesting way. And it brought the idea of tracking really very close to home for a lot of people. The next project is called Priya's Shakti. Also funded in 2014. And this project was born as a reaction to gender-based violence in India. It was particularly created after the 2012 gang rape in New Delhi, where the creator, Ram Devineni, who is also from India, was there, and he was sort of interviewing everyone or just asking people around about what they thought about the situation. The girl who was gang raped was also killed on a bus. And a lot of people's reactions were, well, you know, a girl shouldn't be on a bus so late at night. Or the blame was sort of always put on the woman. And in many cases, after these women are raped, they are really ostracized by their communities. They are shunned. They are neglected by the community as though they have committed a huge crime. So he thought that in order to change that culture, he needed to change it starting with education. So he brought together a team and they created this comic book, which borrowed from Hindu mythology and created the fictional character of Priya. Priya was a woman superhero, which in of itself in India was sort of a revolution. And they added to the comic book elements of augmented reality. So you could scan panels in the comic book and get an animated documentary or testimonials by real-life experiences by women who were raped in India. The way they wanted to distribute the comic book was also quite particular in how it targeted the youth, because you could download it online for free. It was distributed in many schools. They painted murals all over India that were also scannable, and you could use the app to get the augmented reality experience. And that access to this story was really very important for them in order to get as many youth engaged in this conversation, in order to hopefully change the cultural perspective on being raped and what that meant for the women experience, and how if you are a survivor, it meant that you're a hero and not a criminal. I mean, I'll also show you, because it's quite cool how the augmented reality works, a video of...
Priya Shakti is an innovative multimedia project that addresses attitudes towards gender-based violence in India and around the world. Hindu gods and their moral tales are integral to the Hindu majority in India and the Indian diasporas. Priya Shakti provides a new narrative and voice in the mythological canon by placing the goddess Parvati, an immortal woman who is a rape survivor, at the center of the story. Central to Priya Shakti is an augmented reality comic book, which uses a popular app to make animation, videos, and other interactive elements pop out of its pages. In our comic book, certain panels are animated featuring real-life stories and voices of Indian women who have survived sexual assault and faced the ensuing trauma and social stigma. These pieces are short documentaries, but the women are animated in order to protect their identity. The comic book is available as a print and digital version and free to download worldwide at priyashakti.com.
Yeah, so this comic book traveled with a lot of NGOs in India and was really able to, although it was a documentary essentially, to borrow from the art of the comic book and the art of fiction and merge it with mythology and facts in order to create this sort of moving experience around gender-based violence. The next project is called Blackout. This project was funded this year by the New Media Fund, and then it was at the Tribeca Film Festival. This year has been a tough year for many people in the United States, and part of it was because of the recent election, where a lot of people were really questioning the American identity. Who was American and who was allowed to be American, and what that really meant. And this project came at a time where New York City was known as a sanctuary city where many, many immigrants really found home in that city. So Blackout puts you inside the subway. The subway is a place where many people would be in many people from different demographics where they wouldn't otherwise interact are put in the same space. If you are anyone in New York, you're probably going to use the subway. it puts you in this environment and you are sort of allowed into the thoughts of the passengers on the train. I mean, I take the subway every day, and if I'm not reading a book or listening to music, I'm wondering what people are thinking or what they are thinking about me. So it was an interesting way to sort of tackle that moment in the subway where you are on in a train for 30 minutes and wondering about the people around you. And when you put on the headset, you walk into the subway. It's room scale, so you can really roam around. And every character you focus on, you're sort of invited into their world or their thoughts. And they had questions about who they are and how they exist within that city and how American or non-American they are. In order to do that, the team at Scatter, that's an immersive studio based in Brooklyn, wanted to capture the stories of these people, but also wanted to capture these people. And so they created a device called DepthKit that captures objects or people in 3D form. So I put on the camera and I get a full capture of you and how you move. And then they place these people in a computer-generated environment, which was the subway. And it was important for them to capture the people in their fullness in order to sort of maintain their identity, maintain the way they move, the way their thoughts sort of were revealed in the way they were sitting and the way that they interacted with the environment around them. At any given moment, if you enter that VR experience, you're probably going to see different people in the subway than you would if you had tried the experience 5 minutes ago. Also, way better explained seen than it is told. So I'm also going to show you an experience. The voice is a little bit hard to hear in this one, but I think you're going to get the idea.
The diversity of this city is its most attractive quality. Sharing close physical space with strangers makes me curious about the lives of the people around me. If I could read their minds, what would that reveal about them? And how would it surprise me?
What is happening? I'm late now.
Blackout is a virtual reality film that makes this possible. When the train stalls and the lights go out, you find yourself gifted with the power of telepathy.
Somebody does definitely smell one here. Or maybe it's just the train.
The people who see me in my day-to-day life, they don't even know who I am.
People stop. Especially here in New York, you have to put on a little coat of armor when you walk outside.
I need a better punchline for this joke. Maybe if I...
Featuring interviews and portraits of real people from around the world, Blackout gives you access to the internal thoughts of strangers.
Wow, that's crazy.
Blackout is a documentary film that's set in a 3D environment or a video game environment. So you're enabled to explore the other passengers in the train and to sort of choose your own adventure.
A new emerging way to think about filmmaking for virtual reality is a technique called volumetric filmmaking. In this technique, you're actually capturing a full person that can then be put into a virtual environment.
There are no tools that exist right now to do this kind of work, and so we had to create a whole tool set that allows you to do this.
In order to tell the story of Blackout, we created DepthKit. DepthKit combines depth sensors with HD cameras to create cinematic 3D models. This allows us to place real people in our virtual train.
You can view that character from absolutely anywhere. You can walk around them, you can move around them. It's like they're there.
The level of interactivity with the characters, the way that it enables you to immerse yourself into the story. You're able to explore the inner worlds of your other passengers in a way that isn't possible with screen-based storytelling.
This was exhibited at the Tribeca Film Festival this year, which is based in New York, and during the festival, they also were capturing, they had a sort of live studio, and they were capturing people's experiences and channeling them into the VR experience. And it really, I think, impacted New Yorkers in a particular way, and I think that was their primary audience. And the last project I want to talk about today is the Argus project. The Argus project was born last year as a reaction to police brutality and the many black lives that were lost because of bad policing. They started with interviewing the families of victims that were lost, and they also went a step further, and they interviewed policemen who were willing and open to talk about police brutality from their own experience. They started with a sort of video installation, and then they dug into the idea of civilian capturing or civilian journalism, and how so many of these stories were exposed because of the phone and being able to just film a lot of it as it was happening, as opposed to the past when these things were happening and they were just totally not exposed. They wanted to create something alongside this video installation that gave power back to the people. And that's how they created the wearable suit. It's a superhero suit. It looks like a total superhero suit. And it had computer-operated cameras all over the suit, which in the position that you would interact with a policeman, if you were a black man, you would likely raise both of your hands. And there were cameras all over that kind of posture. And it was meant to give the power back to the people, and also make a comment on accountability. Now, with all the access to cameras and personal sort of civilian exposure and eyewitnessing, they created this suit that they also were able to travel around the U.S. and have workshops and community events around to generate critical conversation with families and policemen and people affected by this sort of issue. The suit actually looks pretty cool, and I will show you. In the last video, I promise.
All our loved ones' lives are important to us. It might not be important to the officer that took them, but they were important to us, the family. When NYPD killed my son, they killed my whole family. They killed my whole life.
We care about cops. We know their work is hard and strenuous and what they go up against on a daily basis. But we also see that them videos don't lie.
Well, the myth to me is that the police are there to protect us. I was arresting individuals who were the victims, not the criminals. They were victims of the system.
Where is the justice? There is no justice.
And the real power of this suit or this project was the sense of agency that the community felt just by it being created. They do a lot of night walks with this project, and it's been sort of a thrill to see especially younger black males marvel at the idea of a superhero suit that just simply captured in the case of they are brutally beat up, that they just captured that truth and that reality. So what do we look for when projects apply to the New Media Fund or to our festivals? Our primary question in most situations is, does this really have to be an interactive, or does this have to really use this technology? And is this technology the best thing for this narrative to be communicated with the specific audience? We get a lot of applications that just say, you know, VR because VR. And that really doesn't cut it for us. Or web docs because it's happening these days. And that is sometimes, in many cases, even if the creators are not aware of it, that kills your project. And so we really think about the relationship between the technology and the narrative, how necessary is the technology for this narrative, and the relationship between the technology and the audience that they are targeting. Will your target audience have access to the technology that you're using? And will your audience understand what's happening if you put that experience within a VR or online or any technology that you decide to use? So many web docs or interactive or immersive or new media documentaries were built with the intention to change people's opinions about other people's lives. And these are exactly the kind of projects that we are not interested in. We're interested in the kinds of projects that target a community and are able to create critical discourse around identities, around people's lives, and maybe even create some impact within social issues and really change people's lives at the end of the day. In order to think about the future for the department, because we are at a sort of critical intersection now in the United States in terms of how much the arts are being supported, and the general conversation around different demographics and the attack on these demographics, we need to understand. I mean, I really don't mean to make this political, but we really need to understand what we are up against now. And we are up against so many things that sort of question the technology, and this technology has allowed for so much good to happen in the world and so much bad to sort of happen in the world. And so the next steps for TFI Interactive is community-based stories, similar to the ones that I just spoke about, projects that really target communities that are sensible. How much is the creator relevant to the story, and then how much is this creator relevant to the target audience? We want to excavate community-based issues, and we want to support the production of projects that have real social impact on the lives of many. And so a natural next step for us, and that's a big event that we have happening in December, is a collab, which is sort of a play on words of community collaboration and the lab, which is a hackathon on steroids. It's not 3 days, it's 5 days. It includes panels and conversations by lawyers and activists and journalists. Our up-and-coming one in December is focused on immigration because it couldn't be more of a critical topic in the United States. And this is sort of the spirit with which we want to drive our next programming in the coming year. We want to continue to fund projects. We want to continue to create labs and provide resources and provide production support. But we want to be even more selective with the kinds of projects we work with. We will forever remain international because it's important for us that we keep a really global view on ourselves and the world. And I'm going to end it here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zeyna. It was very interesting, your talk. Okay, we have time for questions. Let's say 10 minutes for Q&A. And then we're going to start with Damian. So, who break the ice? Yep. Okay. We don't have more mics, so we have to share in this collab idea. We have to share the mic, exactly. The unique mic.
Thanks. Hi, Zeyna. My name is Paolo, and I have a question towards how technology conveys with social aspects. For me, it's really important as a journalist or a student of journalism to understand how social media works and how people interact with each other, and how this, as you said, becomes political. This is a new space in which people are not being regulated on what they said or what they share. So this is interactive, very dynamic work. I think it's really proving that technology is really being inserted really fast on society. My question is, how you think technology, or how do you think that developers must become someone to teach others how to use technology? Do you think there's an ethical discourse from developers towards this social new space that it's growing, you know, among people and the humanity, I think? I don't know if my question is
I'm going to recap your questions just to make sure I understood it. You're asking if developers, meaning programmers and coders, have a social responsibility to educate others on how technology works?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting question. I think, you know, just as much as journalists in the age of fake news have a responsibility to report factually and truthfully, developers have the capacity or the knowledge to maybe, you know, you can't educate everyone, and not everyone is going to know how to process this information, but they can create channels and opportunities to engage with others about this, these issues. After the big ban in the United States, so many cities created something called Hack the Ban. Hackathons will forever remain a big topic in the world. And it was just developers creating platforms that regular people can use and understand their rights, have access to information that they maybe wouldn't have access to just by roaming the internet. So maybe their role is really to provide platforms that are good platforms, platforms that are in service of the people. It's hard to, you know, a filmmaker is not going to go and teach everyone how to film, but he can make really good films for people to watch. And I think that's where the developers can do. And they can also work with people like journalists and filmmakers and activists and so on to, you know, create sort of this, a world that is kinder to people than the current one that we live in.
Okay, you have more questions? One? Yeah.
Hola. Quería preguntarte sobre cómo es el trabajo de distribución que hacen con con este tipo de obras, y cómo miden el impacto que buscan generar en las comunidades, ya que las temáticas están relacionadas con problemas de las comunidades. cómo miden el impacto que causan las obras en las comunidades, ya que me parece que muchas de estas obras son como medias efímeras, en el sentido de que, como conversábamos un poco en la mañana, salió el tema en el laboratorio con Arnaud, ok.
No. He will keep talking in Spanish, but I will translate this part because it's too long and I'm tired to translate everything.
And then I will put
so
this.
first of all, how distribution works in Tribeca, how you distribute this kind of interactive works on the one hand, and on the other, how we measure the impact according that you transform or you alterate communities, and how these communities can understand or can measure this impact. Si quieres acabar?
No, eso.
Okay, it's very synthetic, but I prefer to go straight to the point, if you can answer these two key questions.
In terms of distribution, as I showed, there's a wide spectrum of technology being used, and so there aren't necessarily very specific channels of distribution. There are being created so many distribution channels for VR content, but one of the ways that we hope to disseminate this information or these kinds of projects is first through our exhibitions at the Tribeca Film Festival, and then depending on the project, we encourage the projects to go either to museums, to community projects, to urban installations, to continue to create spaces and installations for these projects. There are VR channels, there are VR apps that you can download and watch all these kinds of VR, and that's sort of a distribution channel for virtual reality or 360 video, but a lot of the technology is, not very generic, and so there aren't like very particular distribution channels, but I feel like the industry is really working hard to create that kind of distribution model or distribution channels for the various forms of content. And in terms of impact, I think that is a great question, and so many of us in the United States are trying to tackle it. It's hard to measure impact, especially because these projects are not based on how many people clicked or how many people saw the website, because that's not real impact at the end of the day. That's numbers, and it's quantitative and it's not qualitative. And what we are really interested in is qualitative. Some projects just roam around small communities. They're not really very well known all over the world, but they generate change within their small little worlds, and that for us is enough impact, and that for us is a successful project. And so I don't really have an answer. It's still sort of a mysterious world of how do you measure impact and how do you measure success. There are some metrics, but it's not, I don't think it applies to every project. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we have time for one last question. So here.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, Mauricio here. I just wanted to add to the previous question. Since we're talking about distribution, I just wanted to ask, since Tribeca puts money on films that are being produced, does Tribeca take the rights from the independent producer or the person that makes that film, in the sense that how might the treaty work between Tribeca and that producer to get that film distributed by Tribeca? That would be the question, I guess.
I think I missed some parts. I couldn't hear you. Can you just repeat?
I beg your pardon. I just wanted to add to the question that Carlos just made. Talking about film distribution, Tribeca seems to be sort of an incubator of great work all around the world. So when you actually do that and you pass money on to a producer to make a film, how does that accord of right distributions work? If you can't measure the impact, I'd imagine that there is some sort of a qualitative measuring that the same producer you give him money to can actually work towards trying to raise?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to find out. Yeah.
I think I understand what you're saying in terms of whether or not we help projects get distributed. First of all, in so many cases, when projects get funded by Tribeca, that's already sort of a great sort of support or push for the project. We try to remain a resource to so many of the projects and the filmmakers that we fund. And so even if we don't necessarily get them a distribution deal, we definitely get them the connection. We have a program now called If Then, and it's focused on short documentaries. If Then, you can check it out on our website. And that particular program is for short documentaries to get funding, to get created, fully funded, and then directly tied to a distribution channel. So we've partnered with New York Times, Updocs. I think that's the only one I know, but there are many other platforms because it's not my direct program. But the focus of this program is distribution, because in many cases short form sort of gets produced, maybe does a festival run and then sits at home, and we wanted to counter that. So we are thinking more and more about distribution. Even in my department, we are sort of moving into a Tribeca channel of distribution, but it's still in the early stages, but we definitely try to connect the projects that we work with to whatever they need, and oftentimes it is distribution. We have a market at the Tribeca Film Festival, which ideally is rooted in is focused on that, bringing projects for them to pitch to the market, to the industry, and then hopefully it gets picked up or it gets more funding or so on and so forth. So.
Thank you very much, Zeyna. Let's give a big round of applause.